everybody. My name is Markiplier.
Take this. It is hope. The very last of it.
Okay, I pull up, hop out at the after party.
Face the fearsome truth of the darkest dungeon.
Wait, what?
Darkest Dungeon, a dungeon-crawling roguelike that has been never seen before by the likes of many and is very unique to its kind. It has a very niche and cult following that's a pretty big following indeed, and it really left a mark. Red Hook Games made a game that was one of a kind, and recently they came out with Darkest Dungeon 2, the full release. How does that hold up compared to the first game? I'm Mr. Panda, and I played Darkest Dungeon 2, so I can tell you whether the game holds up to the original,
Hey, that's pretty good.
or is even worth your time.
It's the biggest piece of dog.
Let's go ahead and get into it. I was all aboard the hype train when I heard about Darkest Dungeon 2. When I saw the change from 2D to 3D, I was sure that they were going to give us some new experience to go off of. And did they? Spoiler, the answer is no. Now, I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater and call this game bad by any means. If you're a fan of roguelikes, it's a very well stylized and tight controlled cycle through roguelike. But if you came to the game looking for something that feels like Darkest Dungeon, then you will probably be best off just playing the first game. Like, the difference between the two is akin to watching the Pirates of the Caribbean movies and then going to Disneyland for the first time to see the rides the movie was based on. Not really the hog swally pirate adventure you were expecting. You know what is a hog swally pirate adventure though? Subscribing. I'm trying to get to a 10,000 sub goal, and I would really love if you could help me out with that. If you're enjoying the video so far, go ahead and tickle Panda right there if you want to go ahead and subscribe, and let's keep on going. Let's break down some of the bigger differences of the games. Darkest Dungeon 1 is a cyclical roguelike where you have a hub where you get most of your characters, items, treatments, and where you will do most of your preparations before choosing a variety of randomized dungeons, all based on different themes and all leading to the final dungeon with their own unique bosses for each theme. Darkest Dungeon 2 split from that path to be a very different kind of cyclical roguelike where you don't really have a hub. Instead, you set up your team in the starting menu and you go through your run. You ride and maintain a carriage until you have opportunities to get to an inn, which is where your characters will get a break from the dangerous and fraught-filled paths, and also where you will then proceed to strategize before heading down the path leading to the actual dungeon itself at the end of the actual run. Where the original game had a lot of prep work before heading into a dungeon, Darkest Dungeon 2 has you do a light prep work in the beginning, since a lot of the chances and opportunities to better prepare yourself for the final boss is left widely up to RNG while you go through your run. I feel like the RNG in the game really is a double-edged sword, especially if you find yourself playing the first game. There's a lot of pros and cons to it. Well, I feel like some of the great options for the RNG to not only give you an unfound look at the characters' backstories and even greater chances at seeing a greater variety of enemies on your run is also accompanied by the fact that the new visuals, atmosphere, and music is absolutely stunning. Darkest Dungeon 2 can really throw you into a good sense of storytelling. Sometimes. Again, it's based on RNG, so you may not get some of those details on your first run, or you might die and you might get another chance to see all the backstory you missed. But with that level of RNG, there does come some huge issues in the balancing of the encounters and also with certain new features of the game. One such feature, and a huge glaring balance issue, is the infinity between your party members. Like a trapeze act where one of the guys decides not to catch you midway through the show because he knows you've been playing tiddlywinks with his girlfriend. Relationships matter in this game. They put a way bigger emphasis on how your team feels about each other each time you rest at an inn. That's where RNG is either super good or super bad. You could get two members who basically end up best buddies like Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly halfway through Step Brothers.
What? Did we just become best friends? Yup.
Or you can end up with two of them despising each other like Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly in the beginning of Step Brothers.
I know you touched my drumstick, because the left one has a chip in it.
You fucking crazy, man.
But the problem lies in the negative effects, because not only can the harsh relationship give debuffs to the team, but sometimes a negative affinity can hard lock one of those characters' movesets for the entirety of the run, which can absolutely raw dog you like Cthulhu going to a swingers bar. Besides the fact that due to the new way the cycle runs in the game, outside of battle you can openly change your movesets for characters to better strategize on the fly. This absolute boner killer of a debuff doesn't, in my opinion, up the difficulty, but it reduces the amount of fun I can have based on randomized bullshit, because one character doesn't like the other character's crusty toes. The other absolute glaring balancing issue is the life-saving throws that enemies will get into the game. Now, I'm all for necromancy, you know? I would let a fat man come back to life just to finish the whopper he choked on to death, just to choke on it again, but come on. Legitimately, it's absurd how many life-saving throw a monster is allowed to have in one battle in this game. In a singular battle so far, I know of an instance where one particular enemy got 4 life-saving throws. That has more chances than my therapist gave me because I kept telling him he had a Squidward-shaped nose. I can only tell that they put that number generator to work big time in this game to give as much surprise as possible, but this is not a surprise I wanted. It doesn't give real difficulty to the game, and it kind of overshadows the way you play a run because it pairs terribly with how many of the healing options work now, since many of the characters who have healing can no longer just heal people with a randomized amount given. Red Hook now set it up where the skill only heals a certain amount and your characters have to get a certain amount of health to even heal them, which is absolutely obnoxious when you're trying to heal your party members fully through the entire health bar, but instead you have to wait until they're at least 25 health and then it only heals them 40, which when you're later in the game and the health bar is higher doesn't mean anything in battle. If I wanted to be transported into a world where my healer is a tsundere that only heals me when I get kicked enough to their satisfaction, then I just go watch Konosuba instead of play this game. But you know, I do feel bad. I've only talked about the negatives so far. Let's go ahead and get into a few of the positives with the game. The synergy with your team can be a very diverse experience, not only because the game now allows you to move their positions and their skill sets as long as you're not in battle, but now they have character-specific quests that can enrich your experience with the game since it helps level up the character skills, and a lot of the time the quest is finding a shrine, which actually gives you backstory to the character since you no longer hire several versions of the characters. You just get one of each character that gets basically a mind wipe refresh after each run. I really do need to emphasize though the amazing effort Red Hook put into each and every model and every bit of the environment. You can really tell the development team put a lot of effort into how the game looks and sounds, and is a major selling point for this title. Along with the other things I think was well executed, I feel like there wasn't a tremendous change to the trinkets. There was added effects and trade-offs though that do lend to a well-designed system of strategizing what items best maximize your characters for each run. In terms of the actual game cycle, I feel like one of the positives for that is that there is a good chance if you go down a rougher path that you'll likely get rewarded at the end of it, which either stops at a hospital, good items from a strong encounter, or places that people are trying to actually interact with or have an effect on each actual party member. Though, also due to this change, you can only access the place to remove bad quirks off of a character through luck or planning out your path better. Due to the fact that the hospital is no longer accessible in the menus, it's only accessible through traveling the path. It's kind of like, I know every person on my team has a broken femur, but that other path has a target at the end of it, and you just know I'm a shopaholic. Finally, I kind of want to speak on things that have changed from the first game that I felt like were missed opportunities in some ways, such as the fact that you don't stock up on characters so you can build out different kind of teams, and because of this, characters themselves don't have levels in the second game, which I found very strange, since if you played the first game then you know that there are a ton of mercenaries in this world, so the fact that you only get one of each character and they just reset after each run just makes the world feel smaller, even though the intention was to try to make the scale of the world bigger with this one. Or the other fact that since now the game makes you go through your run to encounter most things that help a character, they had to reduce the planning for how badly stress in your light source truly affects your run. Stress gets reset every run, so it doesn't matter to your team unless it's right in the middle of something and it actually like creates a debuff of some kind in battle. Otherwise, it really doesn't matter after the run is over, unlike in the first game where stress had a huge piece of permanent action on your characters unless you could rotate out with other heroes. The final fact I want to go over is the fact that because of the style of this game, they got rid of a lot of traps and interactable things that really were needed by particular characters to avoid a bad result, such as traps, such as broken clocks, such as certain temples. It just got rid of a lot of additional preparation by trying to find certain combinations of teams, and it also made a lot of the characters feel a lot less useful in terms of actually dungeon exploring. So here we are. We're coming down to the verdict for Darkest Dungeon 2. What do I think of the game? Well, despite all my squawking, I still find the game quite fun. If you're a fan of dungeon crawling roguelikes, then this is a very well built and strategic game to play. It does add that since this game is so different from the first, for better or for worse, it makes the game very accessible to new players and very inviting to people who never played the first game. Now, on the other perspective, for fans who played the original, who are looking for that Darkest Dungeon experience, I just don't think you'll find it here. This game has a much more generic run cycle than the first game, and in my personal opinion, the first game had way better gameplay, and the gameplay and story collided in such a way that was way too unique and specialized to try to go backwards with that. This second game really went with a more typical generic roguelike system with Darkest Dungeon models and environments, which made the game a lot less special in my opinion. There were still a lot of great qualities to it, but I'm gonna probably wait for the third game to come out to see if it really does hold true to the original values of Darkest Dungeon, because I just don't think this second game had the same charm or the same effect on replayability. This is the end of the video. If you want to go ahead and watch more of my content, here's a video right here. Go ahead and just poke that little boy, poke that little panda right there. Watch another video. It helps me out. It lets me know you like my content, and I hope I see you guys next time. Bye-bye.